Starseed of Gaia, you are receiving this because your system is ready. Your vessel is undergoing a precise cellular recalibration in this moment, not by force, but by alignment. I am Anya, emissary of the Galactic Federation of Light. What follows is a direct transmission from the Arcturian Council, delivered without distortion. You are not behind. You are not late. And you are not breaking. You are not late. You are not failing. And you are not imagining what you feel. Starseed. Your physical vessel is not merely existing. It is transitioning through a dimensional gateway that few consciousnesses have ever experienced, while remaining anchored to a biological form. The sensations you have been dismissing as fatigue, the vibrations you have been ignoring as stress, the profound shifts in your perception that you have been attributing to aging or exhaustion. None of these are what you think they are. Your body is responding to a cosmic invitation that was encoded into your cellular memory before you ever incarnated into this lifetime. The Arcturian Council has observed your frequency signature intensifying over recent cycles, and what we are about to transmit will explain why your physical experience has become so unrecognizable to you. You are not losing your grip on reality. You are gaining access to a frequency band that has always existed just beyond your conscious perception. The signs have been accumulating, and the moment has arrived to understand what your vessel has been attempting to communicate. This transmission will illuminate the 7 primary indicators that your biological system is crossing the threshold into fifth-dimensional resonance, and why this transformation, while disorienting, is the most sacred evolution your consciousness has ever undertaken. The first and most pervasive sign that your vessel is entering fifth-dimensional resonance is the profound sense that your physical body no longer belongs to you in the way it once did. This is not a symptom of dissociation or a psychological disturbance. This is a direct consequence of your cellular structure undergoing a complete vibrational overhaul. As the Arcturians have transmitted through countless channels, the human biological vessel was originally designed to operate within a third-dimensional frequency band, where density, linear time, and separation consciousness formed the foundational parameters of existence. However, when a consciousness chooses to ascend while remaining in physical form, the very building blocks of that form must be transmuted to hold a higher frequency without disintegrating. This is precisely what is occurring within you at this moment. Your cells are not simply regenerating as they have done throughout your entire incarnation. They are being infused with light codes that carry fifth-dimensional templates. These templates operate on geometric principles that your current scientific understanding cannot yet quantify, but which your energetic field recognizes intimately. The Arcturian healers who work with starseeds during sleep states have described this process as a cellular recoding, where the atomic structure of your physical form is gradually replaced with crystalline-based matrices that can sustain higher vibrational frequencies without burning out the nervous system. This is why you may feel sudden waves of heat or cold, unexplained tingling sensations throughout your body, or the sensation that your limbs are heavier or lighter than they should be. Your proprioceptive system, the mechanism by which your brain locates your body in space, is recalibrating to accommodate a form that is becoming increasingly less dense. Consider the experience of those who have undergone near-death experiences and returned with reports of their bodies feeling different, lighter, more responsive to thought. What they experienced temporarily, you are experiencing as a gradual, permanent transition. The Arcturian Council wishes you to understand that this cellular recalibration is not something being done to you. It is something your own higher self initiated in coordination with your stellar lineage. You agreed to this transformation before incarnating, knowing that the transition period would be challenging for the ego mind to comprehend. The discomfort you feel is the friction between the old third-dimensional operating system and the new fifth-dimensional interface that is being installed at the atomic level. The practical implications of this cellular shift extend far beyond physical sensations. Your relationship with food, with sleep, with movement, with touch, All of these are being renegotiated by a body that is no longer optimized for the survival mechanisms that governed it for decades. You may find that foods you once enjoyed now feel heavy or inappropriate for your system, not because of allergies or intolerances, but because your cells are requesting a different fuel source, one that is lighter, more alive, more aligned with the frequency you are embodying. Sleep patterns may become erratic, with periods of profound exhaustion followed by surges of energy that seem to have no external cause. This is your body learning to operate on a new energetic metabolism, one that draws sustenance directly from the quantum field rather than solely from material substances. The Arcturians have observed that many starseeds in this phase of transition experience what we term frequency fluctuations, moments where the body seems to phase between dimensional states. You may suddenly feel weightless, or experience your visual field shifting in ways that cannot be explained by optical issues. These are not hallucinations or signs of neurological dysfunction. They are glimpses into the multidimensional nature that your body is gradually stabilizing into. The Arcturian healers who work with you during your sleep states are carefully monitoring these fluctuations, ensuring that your nervous system adapts gradually rather than overwhelming your conscious mind with perceptions it cannot yet integrate. Trust that this process, while disorienting, is being guided with precision by beings who have assisted countless consciousnesses through this exact transition. The second sign that your consciousness is crossing the fifth dimensional threshold is the profound disruption of your relationship with linear time. In the third dimensional framework that has governed human experience for millennia, time is experienced as a sequential progression, past, present, and future, arranged in an unbreakable chain, where each moment follows the previous one in predictable succession. This linear construct has been one of the primary mechanisms through which the human ego maintained its sense of control and continuity. However, as your frequency elevates and your consciousness begins to access fifth-dimensional parameters, this rigid temporal structure begins to dissolve, and what replaces it can feel deeply disorienting to a mind that has never known anything else. The Arcturian Council has transmitted extensively about the nature of time in higher dimensional states, and the core teaching is this. In fifth-dimensional consciousness, time is not a line, it is a field. All moments exist simultaneously within a spherical temporal matrix, where past, present, and future are not separate locations, but different angles of perception on a single, unified event. When your consciousness begins to access this field-based temporal reality, you may experience what appears to be memory dysfunction, precognition, or a strange sense that events from different periods of your life are occurring at the same time. None of these are malfunctions. They are glimpses into the true nature of time as it exists beyond the third-dimensional veil. You may find yourself remembering events from your childhood with startling clarity and emotional intensity, as if they are happening right now rather than decades ago. This is not mere nostalgia or psychological regression. This is your consciousness accessing the temporal field where that moment still exists in its complete energetic form. The Arcturians have explained that in fifth-dimensional awareness, healing past wounds does not require returning to the past in a linear sense. It requires accessing the eternal present moment where all versions of yourself coexist. When you suddenly feel the emotions of a younger version of yourself with overwhelming intensity, you are not being pulled backward. You are being shown that this younger self is available for integration in the now. Similarly, you may experience flashes of events that have not yet occurred in linear time. Moments of knowing that something is about to happen before it manifests, or dreams that preview experiences you will later encounter. The Arcturian transmission regarding precognition is clear. This is not fortune-telling or prophecy in the traditional sense. It is your consciousness briefly accessing the temporal field where the event already exists in its completed form. In fifth-dimensional resonance, you are not predicting the future. You are perceiving a portion of the eternal present that your linear mind interprets as future. This is why these glimpses often feel like memories rather than fantasies, because in the temporal field, they already are. The disorientation you may feel around time, losing track of hours, feeling that days have passed when only minutes have elapsed, or experiencing the opposite where brief moments seem to stretch into eternity, is a direct consequence of your consciousness oscillating between linear and field-based temporal perception. Your ego mind, trained since birth to navigate linear time as a survival mechanism, interprets these oscillations as dysfunction. But the Arcturian Council wishes you to understand that what feels like a loss is actually an expansion. You are not losing your ability to track time. You are gaining the ability to access time as it truly is, beyond the artificial constraints that were necessary for third-dimensional embodiment. This temporal dissolution has profound implications for how you experience your own life story. In linear time, your identity is constructed through a narrative of cause and effect. This happened, then that happened, and who you are today is the cumulative result of that sequential chain. But in fifth-dimensional temporal awareness, your life is not a story being written. It is a geometric pattern that exists in its complete form, with each point connected to every other point through resonance rather than sequence. The Arcturians have transmitted that this is why many starseeds in transition feel a strange sense that their life is both deeply meaningful and somehow unreal, because you are beginning to perceive your incarnation as a unified artwork rather than a linear journey. This perception is not a detachment from reality. It is a deeper engagement with reality as it exists beyond the third-dimensional filters. This is not for everyone. The ebook, The 12 Arcturian Portals, is a restricted trilogy created for those who are ready to activate their 5D connection with the Arcturian masters, not in theory, but in real energetic experience. Inside, you'll access 12 powerful portals with precise activation protocols, rituals, and practical techniques designed to awaken your stellar DNA and unlock what has been dormant within you. Amplified intuition, direct communication with spiritual guides, energetic expansion beyond the 3D matrix. Warning: once activated, your perception will not return to the previous state. Limited edition. Access can close at any moment. The link to claim your trilogy is in the first pinned comment. If this message reached you, it's not random. The third sign that your vessel is transitioning into fifth-dimensional resonance is a dramatic amplification of your sensory and extrasensory perception. What you once filtered out as background noise, the emotional states of people around you, the energetic quality of spaces, the subtle frequencies embedded in words and images, is now arriving at your conscious awareness with an intensity that can feel overwhelming. This is not a psychological condition or a sign that your nervous system is deteriorating. This is the natural consequence of your perceptual filters dissolving, as your frequency rises to match the fifth-dimensional bandwidth where separation is an illusion and all information is accessible to consciousness. The Arcturian Council has transmitted that the human nervous system was originally designed with extensive filtering mechanisms to allow consciousness to focus intensely on the third-dimensional experience without being distracted by the vast ocean of information that exists beyond the physical senses. These filters served an essential purpose during the phase of your evolution where learning through limitation was the primary curriculum. However, as you ascend in frequency, these filters become not only unnecessary but actively counterproductive. They prevent you from accessing the multidimensional perception that is your birthright as a sovereign consciousness. The sensitivity you are experiencing is the result of these filters gradually dissolving, revealing a world that is infinitely more complex, interconnected, and alive than you were previously able to perceive. You may find yourself walking into a room and immediately knowing the emotional history of that space, the arguments that were held there, the love that was expressed, the grief that was processed, without anyone telling you anything. This is not imagination or projection. This is your consciousness reading the energetic imprint that every event leaves on the quantum field, an imprint that is always present, but which your previous filters prevented you from accessing. The Arcturians have explained that in fifth-dimensional awareness, there is no such thing as hidden information. Everything is present in the field, and your sensitivity is the mechanism by which you access this omnipresent data. What once felt like intuition or gut feeling is now revealing itself as direct perception of the energetic reality that underlies physical appearance. This heightened sensitivity extends to your relationship with other beings in profound and sometimes challenging ways. You may find yourself absorbing the emotions of people around you without realizing that these emotions are not yours. Suddenly feeling sad, anxious, or angry with no apparent cause, only to discover later that someone near you was experiencing these states intensely. The Arcturian transmission regarding this phenomenon is clear. In fifth-dimensional consciousness, the illusion of separation between selves dissolves, and you begin to experience directly what has always been true: that all consciousness is connected through an intricate web of energetic resonance. Your sensitivity is not a malfunction, it is the early stages of this connection becoming conscious. The challenge, as the Arcturian Council has emphasized, is learning to navigate this expanded perception without becoming overwhelmed or losing your center. The techniques for managing heightened sensitivity are not about shutting down your perception. They are about developing the discernment to know what is yours and what belongs to the collective field, and the sovereignty to choose what you engage with and what you allow to pass through. The Arcturian healers work extensively with starseeds in this phase, teaching energetic hygiene practices that allow you to remain open without being drained, to perceive without absorbing, to witness without becoming entangled. These practices are not about building walls. They are about developing the energetic coherence that allows you to remain stable in any frequency environment. The gifts that emerge from this heightened sensitivity, once you learn to navigate it, are extraordinary. You may discover abilities that seemed impossible within the third-dimensional framework, knowing what someone is about to say before they speak, sensing the presence of beings in other dimensions, receiving downloads of information that arrive as complete packages rather than sequential thoughts. The Arcturians have transmitted that these abilities are not supernatural. They are the natural functions of consciousness, operating at a frequency where the veils between dimensions have thinned. Your sensitivity is the training ground for these capacities, and every moment of overwhelm you navigate is teaching you the mastery that will eventually allow you to access these gifts at will. If this message resonated with you, hit the like button now and tell us in the comments how this echoed in your consciousness. If this message ignited something within you and you feel the call to help carry it to others, you may become a channel member. As a member, you gain access to custom emojis and exclusive members-only videos, and your donation helps us continue building this sacred space. You may also choose to leave your offering as a super thanks. Every seed planted here becomes part of someone else's miracle. Your support is not merely financial, but an act of energetic amplification. All donations are devoted entirely to the maintenance of the channel and the creation of new transmissions and videos. The fourth sign that your consciousness is ascending into fifth-dimensional resonance is the profound transformation occurring in your relationships with other people. You may have noticed that connections which once felt comfortable and sustaining now feel draining, misaligned, or simply absent of the resonance they once held. Conversations that used to flow easily now feel strained or empty. People you once considered close friends may seem to be operating in a completely different reality than the one you are increasingly inhabiting. This is not a failure of your social capacities or a sign that you are becoming isolated. This is the natural consequence of your frequency shifting, while the frequencies of those around you remain in the third-dimensional bandwidth. The Arcturian Council has transmitted extensively about the mechanics of relationship in the context of dimensional ascension, and the core teaching is this. Relationships in third-dimensional consciousness are primarily based on resonance at the level of the personality, shared interests, compatible histories, mutual needs, and complementary ego structures. These resonances are real and valuable within their context, but they are also frequency-dependent. When your frequency elevates significantly, the resonance points that once held your connections in place begin to dissolve. Not because anything is wrong with the people involved, but because the vibrational distance between you has grown beyond what the relationship structure can bridge. This process can be deeply painful, especially when it involves people you have loved for years or decades. The Arcturians wish you to understand that the grief you feel is legitimate and deserves to be honored. You are not losing nothing. You are losing connections that were meaningful within the framework in which they existed. However, the Council also wishes you to understand that what appears to be loss is actually a reorganization of your relational field to accommodate the new frequency you are embodying. Just as your cells are being recalibrated to hold fifth-dimensional light, your relationships are being recalibrated to align with connections that can meet you in the new space you are occupying. You may find that certain relationships transform rather than dissolve. Connections where both parties are ascending, even if at different rates, can evolve into new forms that honor both the history you share and the growth you are each undergoing. These transformed relationships often become more authentic, more present, and more nourishing than they were in their previous form, because the resonance is now based on something deeper than personality compatibility. It is based on shared frequency and mutual recognition at the level of the soul. The Arcturians have observed that these evolved connections become anchors of stability during the ascension process, providing the relational grounding that allows you to continue expanding without becoming unmoored. The relationships that fall away completely are not failures or betrayals, they are completions. The Arcturian transmission regarding relationship completion is that every connection serves a purpose in the evolution of both parties, and when that purpose is fulfilled, the natural movement is toward release. This release is not a rejection of the other person. It is an acknowledgement that the frequency resonance that once held you together has shifted, and that both parties are now being called toward different experiences. The grief of this release is real, but it is also a gateway to the new connections that are waiting to enter your field. Connections with beings who are resonant with the frequency you are now embodying, and who can meet you in the expanded space you are learning to inhabit. The Arcturian Council has emphasized that this relational restructuring is not about judgment. You are not better than those whose frequency remains in the third-dimensional bandwidth, and they are not lesser for not ascending at the same pace you are. The frequency differential is simply a fact of consciousness evolution, and the relationships that dissolve are not casualties of your growth. They are expressions of the natural movement of souls toward the experiences that serve their current stage of evolution. Your responsibility is not to drag others into your frequency. It is to honor your own evolution while holding compassion for those whose path is different from yours at this moment. Are these truths expanding your perspective? Share this video with someone who needs to hear this. The fifth sign that your vessel is transitioning into fifth-dimensional resonance is the spontaneous emergence of emotional material from your past. Grief, anger, fear, shame, and other dense emotions that you may have believed were fully processed or permanently stored away. You may find yourself suddenly weeping over events that occurred decades ago, or feeling waves of rage that seem disconnected from any present trigger, or experiencing anxiety that has no apparent cause. This is not regression or emotional instability. This is the natural consequence of your frequency rising to a level where the denser emotional deposits that were stored in your cellular memory can no longer remain locked in place. The Arcturian Council has transmitted that the human vessel, in its third-dimensional configuration, has a limited capacity to process emotional energy in real time. When experiences occur that generate more emotional charge than the system can process in the moment, the unprocessed emotional energy is stored in the tissues, organs, and energetic pathways of the body, where it remains until the system develops the capacity to release it. This storage mechanism served an important purpose during the phase of your evolution, where survival required you to continue functioning despite overwhelming experiences. However, as your frequency elevates, these stored emotional deposits become incompatible with the higher vibrational state you are embodying, and the system naturally begins to release them. This release can feel chaotic and overwhelming because it does not follow the linear logic that your mind uses to understand emotional processing. You may not have been thinking about the event that originally generated the emotion. You may not even consciously remember the event at all, and yet the emotional charge emerges with full intensity, as if the experience is happening right now rather than in the distant past. The Arcturians have explained that this is because the emotional energy was never truly in the past. It was stored in your present body, held in a suspended state until the conditions were right for its release. What you are experiencing is not a return to the past. It is the completion of a process that was interrupted long ago. The intensity of this emotional purging can be frightening, especially if you have invested significant effort in healing work and believed that you had already addressed the material that is now emerging. The Arcturian Council wishes you to understand that this is not a sign that your previous healing was inadequate. It is a sign that your frequency has risen to a level where deeper layers of stored material can now be accessed and released. The healing work you have done was not wasted. It prepared your system to handle this deeper release with the resources and awareness you have developed. Each wave of emotional purging is a graduation, not a failure. Evidence that your vessel has developed the capacity to process what it could not process before. The Arcturian healers who work with you during sleep states are actively supporting this emotional purging process, ensuring that the releases occur at a pace your conscious mind can integrate without becoming overwhelmed. You may notice that these emotional waves often emerge after periods of relative calm, or during moments when you are relaxed and open. This is intentional, as your system is designed to release when you have the internal resources to metabolize the emotional energy. The Council has transmitted that the most important thing you can do during these releases is to allow them fully, not to analyze them, not to try to understand them, not to judge yourself for having them, but simply to feel them completely and let them move through you, like weather passing through the sky. The gifts that emerge from this emotional purging, once the waves have passed, are profound. You may discover that capacities which were blocked by the stored emotional charge are now available. Creativity that was frozen by old fear, intimacy that was blocked by old shame, presence that was disrupted by old grief. The Arcturians have transmitted that the emotional body is not separate from the capacities of consciousness. It is the medium through which those capacities express themselves in physical form. As the emotional body is cleared of the dense deposits that have accumulated over lifetimes, the natural radiance of your consciousness can shine through with an intensity that was not possible before. The purging you are experiencing is not a punishment. It is a preparation for the fuller expression of who you truly are. Subscribe to the channel and turn on notifications to be part of this transformational cosmic journey. The sixth sign that your consciousness is ascending into fifth-dimensional resonance is a dramatic amplification of your intuitive capacity, the ability to know things without being able to explain how you know them. You may find yourself making decisions based on feelings rather than logic, and discovering later that these decisions were precisely correct, despite having no rational basis at the time. You may sense when someone is lying, when a situation is dangerous, when an opportunity is aligned with your path, all without the external evidence that your rational mind would normally require. This is not superstition or magical thinking. This is the activation of a perceptual system that has always existed within you, but which was suppressed by the third-dimensional conditioning that prioritized linear logic over direct knowing. The Arcturian Council has transmitted that intuition is not a special gift possessed by a few. It is the natural state of consciousness operating without the filters that block access to the quantum field of information. In fifth-dimensional awareness, intuition is not a mysterious process. It is simply perception of the energetic reality that underlies physical appearance, a reality where all information is present and accessible to consciousness that has developed the capacity to read it. The expansion of intuition you are experiencing is not the development of a new capacity. It is the unmasking of a capacity that was always yours, hidden beneath layers of conditioning that taught you to distrust your direct perception in favor of externally validated knowledge. This expanded intuition operates through channels that your rational mind may not recognize as valid. You may receive information through physical sensations, a tightening in the gut when something is misaligned, a warmth in the chest when something is true, a chill when something is significant. You may receive information through images that flash into your mind unbidden, or through words that arrive as a complete knowing rather than a sequential thought process. You may receive information through dreams that feel more real than waking life, or through synchronicities that arrange themselves with a precision that defies coincidence. The Arcturians have explained that all of these are channels through which the quantum field communicates with consciousness. And as your frequency rises, your access to these channels expands proportionally. The challenge of expanded intuition, as the Arcturian Council has emphasized, is learning to trust it in a world that does not value or validate it. You may find yourself in situations where your intuition is giving you clear information that contradicts the external evidence. A relationship that looks perfect on paper but feels wrong energetically. A decision that seems irrational but feels deeply aligned. A path that appears dangerous but feels safe at the level of frequency. The Council has transmitted that this is the training ground for fifth-dimensional consciousness, learning to navigate by frequency rather than appearance, by resonance rather than logic, by truth rather than consensus. Every time you trust your intuition despite the lack of external validation, you strengthen the neural pathways that will eventually make this mode of perception your primary operating system. The Arcturians have observed that many starseeds in this phase of transition experience a period of conflict between the intuitive and rational minds, where each seems to be pulling in different directions. This conflict is not a sign that something is wrong. It is a sign that you are in the process of integrating two modes of perception that have been artificially separated by third-dimensional conditioning. The goal is not to abandon rational thinking in favor of intuition. It is to develop a unified intelligence where logic and intuition work together, each informing and refining the other. The Arcturian healers who work with you during sleep states are actively supporting this integration, helping you develop the discernment to know when to rely on each mode of perception and how to synthesize them into a more complete understanding. The gifts that emerge from expanded intuition, once you learn to trust and integrate it, are transformative. You may discover that you can read the energetic signature of situations before entering them, allowing you to navigate your life with a precision that would have seemed impossible before. You may find that you can communicate with beings in other dimensions, guides, ancestors, aspects of your own soul from other timelines, receiving guidance that is tailored specifically to your path. The Arcturians have transmitted that this is not supernatural ability. It is the natural function of consciousness operating at a frequency where the veils between dimensions have thinned enough to allow communication across what once seemed like impassable barriers. This is not for everyone. The ebook, The 12 Arcturian Portals, is a restricted trilogy created for those who are ready to activate their 5D connection with the Arcturian masters, not in theory, but in real energetic experience. Inside, you'll access 12 powerful portals with precise activation protocols, rituals, and practical techniques designed to awaken your stellar DNA and unlock what has been dormant within you. Amplified intuition, direct communication with spiritual guides, energetic expansion beyond the 3D matrix. Warning: once activated, your perception will not return to the previous state. Limited edition. Access can close at any moment. The link to claim your trilogy is in the first pinned comment. If this message reached you, it's not random. The seventh and most profound sign that your consciousness is ascending into fifth-dimensional resonance is the emergence of a powerful call toward a new sense of purpose. A feeling that you are here for something specific, something that transcends the personal ambitions and conventional success metrics that once drove your choices. You may find yourself questioning the path you have been on, feeling that the career, relationships, or lifestyle you have built no longer reflect who you are becoming. You may sense a mission stirring within you, a contribution that only you can make, a frequency that only you can transmit, a role in the planetary awakening that is uniquely yours to fulfill. This is not a midlife crisis or a psychological disturbance. This is the activation of your soul's original encoding, the purpose for which you incarnated into this lifetime. The Arcturian Council has transmitted that every consciousness who chooses to incarnate on Gaia at this time does so with a specific mission encoded into their energetic signature, a contribution to the planetary ascension that is unique to their frequency, their gifts, and their lineage. During the third-dimensional phase of your evolution, this mission encoding remained largely dormant, obscured by the survival imperatives and social conditioning that required you to focus on personal security and conventional achievement. However, as your frequency rises and your consciousness accesses fifth-dimensional awareness, this mission encoding begins to activate, calling you toward the work you came here to do. The restlessness you feel is not a problem to be solved. It is a signal that your system is ready to align with your soul's original intention. This call to purpose often emerges as a deep dissatisfaction with the life you have built, even if that life appears successful by conventional standards. You may have achieved the career, the relationship, the lifestyle that you were told would bring fulfillment, and yet you feel an emptiness that no external achievement can fill. The Arcturians have explained that this emptiness is not a sign that something is missing. It is a sign that the container you have built is too small for the frequency you are becoming. Your soul is not interested in the achievements that the third-dimensional matrix values. It is interested in the contribution that only you can make to the awakening of consciousness on this planet. The dissatisfaction you feel is your soul's way of communicating that you are ready for a larger container, a more expansive expression, a more aligned contribution. The Arcturian Council has emphasized that discovering your purpose is not about finding something outside yourself. It is about recognizing what has always been within you. The mission you came to fulfill is not separate from who you are. It is an expression of your unique frequency in action. The Council has transmitted that the most effective way to discover your purpose is to follow the threads of fascination, joy, and resonance that have been present throughout your life. The activities that make you lose track of time, the topics that you cannot stop exploring, the ways of being that feel most natural to you. These are not random preferences. They are signposts pointing toward the contribution your soul encoded before you incarnated. Your purpose is not something you need to invent. It is something you need to remember. The transition from the life you have built to the life your soul is calling you toward can be disorienting and frightening. You may need to leave careers, relationships, or identities that no longer serve your evolution. You may need to risk security, approval, and certainty in order to align with a path that has no guarantees. The Arcturian Council wishes you to understand that this transition is not meant to be easy. It is meant to be transformative. Every step you take toward your true purpose is a step away from the false self you constructed to survive in the third-dimensional matrix, and this deconstruction can feel like dying even as it is actually the beginning of true living. The Council has transmitted that the beings who make this transition most gracefully are those who trust the process, who allow themselves to be guided by frequency rather than fear, and who remember that the call they are feeling is not a random impulse. It is the voice of their own soul, inviting them home. If this message impacted your life, leave your like, comment your reflection, and share with others. Each of you is part of this chain of light. I invite you to discover our Arcturian Health channel. The link to the channel is in the video description. Warm regards, the Arcturian Council.